Hello, I'm Kaiser and welcome to Moose Reads. Before I get started, I want to say that the opinions that I give here are my own opinions. They are extremely subjective. If I dislike a book, it is not a reflection on the author and it is not a reflection on people who do like it. Different people have different tastes, and that's okay. Today, I will be reviewing Code Veronica by S.D. Perry. This is the 6th book in the Resident Evil series. It is a sci-fi horror, the description says. A desperate search for her missing brother once again pits Claire Redfield against the terrifying bioweapons of the Umbrella Corporation. Her quest leads her to a remote island where a mad genius has unleashed every grotesque creature at his disposal to stop her from interfering with his horrific agenda. Catapulted to the bottom of the world, Claire is at last reunited with the man she came to find. Chris Redfield has been fighting a one-man war of his own against Umbrella's most terrifying creations, and is now on a collision course with the man who betrayed the stars in Raccoon City. A man who should, by all rights, be dead. Captain Albert Wesker. 3 stars. Possibly 2 stars. Once again, Perry is adapting one of the games. This time, I'm sure you'll be surprised to hear, it's Code Veronica. Code Veronica takes up a weird place in the Resident Evil canon. It's not numbered, but from what I've seen, most people seem to agree it counts as a main series game. I suspect this is because it has Claire in it, and she's one of our main characters, but I'm not sure. Whatever the reason, it got a book adaptation, which can't be said for Resident Evil Survivor that came out the same year. This is one of 2 instances where I feel like the book improved the experience in some ways. The other is 0 Hour, based on Resident Evil 0, but I read that before I started this channel, so it won't be getting a review. At any rate, I kind of feel like Code Veronica doesn't make a lot of sense in the game canon. Claire goes from looking for Chris in Raccoon City to looking for him in Paris without any real indication of how she got from point A to point B. Because the book series has previously established that Chris, Barry, and whoops, not Jill after all, have been in Europe and are potentially in danger, it feels a lot less jarring. That's not to say it patches the holes over completely. Claire is looking for Chris and went into the Paris facility alone for some reason, only to be captured. She is then taken to the Rockford Island facility. For reasons that we don't learn until much later in the book, there's an attack on the island resulting in a viral outbreak. The guy who captured Claire decides to give her a fighting chance and lets her out of her cell, which is where you start playing the game and is also where the plot mostly starts in the book. Claire almost immediately finds a computer with information indicating Umbrella is surveilling Chris and knows he's in Europe, but not exactly where. Claire uses the computer to send a message to Leon, who we find out is with Chris. This felt pretty weird to me. Possibly the book hand-waved it, but even given an explanation, it cheapens the plot by putting Claire in a predicament that she could have avoided if she had simply stuck with Leon. This is the point where I have to admit that I don't like Code Veronica, either the game or the book. This is due in part to our male lead, Steve. He's a teenage boy with an attitude, and I mostly find him annoying. Steve aside, there are other elements of this story that I don't care for that make it fairly unpalatable to me, but that's mostly down to spoilers, so I'll discuss it later. I'm not actually all that familiar with Code Veronica, by the way. We never owned it, so the first time I ever saw the game was sometime last year when I endeavored to watch through all of them. I didn't watch all of them, losing steam after 4, but I did watch Code Veronica, so I have some idea of the plot. The point is, you have to take anything I say about this with a grain of salt. Much like with Nemesis, I kept feeling like we were skipping over a lot, but I can't quite put my finger on what, and may be entirely wrong. I also can't say for sure that any issues I have with the plot can be laid at the feet of Perry, because some, possibly all, of them may be artifacts of the game. Certainly, the things I like the least about this are from the game, and Perry just had to work with what was handed to her. Like with most of these books, the puzzles are largely omitted, but unlike the others, I didn't feel like the ones that were included were handled poorly. Generally, we get decent explanations of what they are and why they matter, and nothing feels strangely out of place. This is also the second book where I felt like the use of multiple perspectives kind of ruined some of the reveals, though. The first was the Umbrella Conspiracy, revealing the villain more or less from the start. Here, the slip isn't as egregious, but it still lessens the impact considerably. Incidentally, this may also have been a problem with Nemesis, but I honestly don't remember at what point we learn about the spy. If it's at the same point when Carlos discovers it, then that also massively spoiled the surprise. Speaking of spoilers, if you don't like spoilers, now is the time to pause or close the video. For everyone else, let's talk details. So, the other thing that I really don't like about Code Veronica is its first villain. I say first because there are kind of three this time. The first of them is Alfred Ashford, the grandson of one of the founders of Umbrella and a complete waste of space. Alfred is one of a pair of fraternal twins, and he's got massive sister issues. In fact, they are so massive that when she put herself into stasis 15 years prior, he had some sort of psychotic break and has begun dressing up as her from time to time without realizing it, thinking she's still with him. I hate this kind of villain plot, so it really didn't endear me to this story. At any rate, this is also the first place where the reveal is spoiled early through the perspectives. The worst part, though, is that it didn't have to be. I think Perry was trying to keep it vague, but at some point he does start to realize that his sister isn't there before slipping firmly back into his fantasy. Then we get the proper reveal later when Claire and Steve meet Alexia for the first time. This is also the first of 2 times where Claire says the stupidest thing possible. See, earlier she saw an old video of the twins standing side by side and torturing a dragonfly. But when she finds out that Alfred has just been pretending to be Alexia the entire time, she wonders if Alexia was ever real. She will repeat this later when we eventually meet the reawakened Alexia, and she says, "I guess she was real after all." Again, I don't know if this silliness was Perry or the game developers, but either way, it's ridiculous. Setting aside that it was spoiled in the description for some reason, the second reveal that gets ruined by having multiple perspectives is that Wesker is still alive. Once again, it's not the worst, coming just a little earlier than it ought. Still, we learn this when Chris comes to Rockford looking for Claire. He learns pretty quickly that she escaped the island, so he's poking around looking for a way out when he runs into Wesker, who immediately gets the jump on him. In the game, this is how we learn Wesker is alive. Possibly this is revealed in a side game, but I can't say. But if you only play the main series games, his appearance comes as much of a shock to the player as it does to Chris. In the book, because we had a chapter from Wesker's perspective, we may actually still be in it at this point, we don't get to experience that shock alongside our protagonist, and it severely undercuts it. I also don't think this is a great reveal in general, though I know that's not Perry's fault. First, Wesker was 100% dead in both the books and games, and though we do learn he's been mutated in some way, we don't really get a proper explanation as to how he's alive. But also, I don't feel like Wesker was built up enough to justify this moment. He doesn't reveal himself as a villain until very near the end of the first game / the Umbrella Conspiracy, and he hasn't been mentioned once since then, so it doesn't feel earned. The other thing that really bothers me in this book is that Perry made Alexia much more powerful than she is in the game. I did watch a bit of it because I wanted to check whether Chris went to Rockford in the game. He does, but that should give game fans an idea of how little I remember about it. So I watched a little bit and can be sure of this one. In the game, Alexia appears on a screen in the Rockford base, and I'm pretty sure it's just her singing to Alfred's corpse. In the book, she telepathically projects her voice across the ocean to invite Wesker to the Antarctic base, because she's also psychic, I guess? Generally, I wouldn't complain about this change, but it does make it feel kind of weird when Chris fights her in the final battle and wins with, I'm fairly certain, less difficulty than when they fought the first tyrant. That's all I have to say about Code Veronica. If you like this video, I hope you'll watch more in the future. Thanks for watching this one. Bye!